Good afternoon, everyone. Stefano back from First Reviews here with another interview podcast episode. Today, I am talking with Taylor Olson, director, actor, Canadian director and actor, uh, talking about his sophomore film, Look at Me. Look at Me is premiering at Slamdance this week. The Slamdance Festival starts on the 19th and runs for 10 days. And Look at Me is premiering on the 21st, Sunday the 21st. So if you are in the Utah area, definitely check that out. And Slamdance also has a virtual aspect of the festival that you can check out as well. Taylor, sorry, long intro.
Good
Needed to
intro though.
needed to talk about needed to let everybody know about this movie. Let's talk about it a little bit. So it started off, from what I understand, it started off as a play.
Yes, that's right.
And how did that evolution happen? I saw that it started in like 2016 to 2018. And did you always have intentions to make it into a feature film, or did that kind of evolve over time?
So I did the play in 2016. Almost it's funny, I applied for an application for a grant to do the play because I was like, I need to do something, I need some money. And I was like, well, maybe this could be interesting if I told my story about this, something I had really seen on stage or told about. So I did the stage production and learned a lot from that. And I had always wanted to adapt it into a film, into the new medium, but I didn't really know how to approach it. And I saw this movie called I'm a Sex Addict by Kezid Zahedi, and it's this movie where he's the filmmaker, plays himself, a fictional version of himself, and dealing with essentially his sex addiction. And I, as much as I thought it was sort of sometimes cringeworthy or awkward or hard to watch because it was so truthful, the vulnerability really spoke to me about the story. And there's sort of a transparency that you almost couldn't get in any other way other than, hey, this is me and this is my story. And so I thought maybe that was the way uh, to do this film as well. And the thing about the film is, in a way, it's almost for the 14 or 15-year-old version of myself who is dealing with an eating disorder and hasn't seen a story like this on screen and is hoping for to not feel so alone. So hopefully the idea is that that kid, maybe there's one 14 or 15-year-old kid who sees this movie who's dealing with a similar struggle and goes, okay, well, it's not just me too.
Yeah. Was it difficult for you to decide that you were going to display your own vulnerability on screen for people to see?
Yeah, absolutely. The first draft of like the first 15 minutes of the film, I try to write it under a character name, try to separate it from myself. And As soon as I started to do that, very early into the screenplay, I realized that I was being untruthful. That like the intention of the idea of making the movie, which is to try to allow myself to be vulnerable and tell the story with those intentions in mind. Wasn't being fulfilled with that. And So it was a little tricky because, it's easier to hide behind a character, even though it's a fictional autobiography. It's a lot easier to hide behind a character and put on that mask. You're a little bit protected there. So it did feel like you're a little bit naked, walking around naked emotionally with this thing that says, well, no, you're playing yourself. Yeah.
Like you said, it's a fictional autobiography, so there are aspects of the film that are, obviously embellished. Your character in the film is going through a lot of struggles, a lot of in battling internal demons, fighting with this eating disorder, as well as trying to connect with people socially. The title, "Look at Me," is very interesting, and obviously repeats itself throughout the film. That inner monologue portion that you have in the film is something so unique. Was that a portion of that was in the play and translated to film?
Yeah, it was. Thanks for that. Thanks for noticing that. Yeah, it was. In the play, it's a little bit more lo-fi. There's a mirror on stage with me, and there's a
Okay.
sock puppet, and the sock puppet is the inner voice. And so then, when I wanted to adapt it onto the screen, I wanted the other version of himself, the version of himself that he thinks he wants to be. Uh, Early in the film, that character is maybe he's not cool, but he thinks he's cool. He thinks he's kind of like the suave kind of version of himself, the more confident version of himself. Um, and as the film moves on, that character kind of digresses and falls apart a little bit. But I wanted that character to feel a little bit more dangerous than a sock puppet. So then, uh, so then I wanted to create a sort of like a cinematic language that could make you understand that that is his inner voice. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and the title itself, "Look at Me," like I said, it was repetitive throughout the film, and
yeah.
as a viewer, he's telling you, me, the viewer, to look at him. It's so interesting, and it's every single time you said "look at me," it kind of came off different, and you were trying to make it is it's like you're trying to tell me something without saying the words to me. So that was beautifully done. I think it was just a very powerful sentence that encompassed the film and encompassed what I think a lot everyone goes through in life and struggles with wanting to either be noticed or being looked at or think that they're not enough. So I think that the title itself, "Look at Me," is just extremely powerful. How did you come up with the title and how did that evolve over the film from the play?
That's that's much too kind. I appreciate that. So, but yeah, I mean, I'll say first. So the title came about. The play was called Heavy, and it was kind of about like the literal weight of what I've dealt with
Mm,
physically through this eating disorder. And in the middle of it, there was a little part of where I went up to the audience in a moment of vulnerability and need in the story, and look at the audience members and say, "Look at me, look 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 at me, like see me." And so it felt right as I was adapting it to the screen that that would be the title because it's kind of a lie. The "look at me" is kind of a lie. It's like, "Look at me, see me," but the character kind of creates a persona or a fake version of himself, which is what creates all the social awkwardness that he'd prefer them to see. So it's like, look
mhm.
at me, but this version, not
Yeah,
the real version. Here's a little facade for you. And it's not until later in the film that that facade has to be destroyed. It has to be torn down. He has to look at himself a little bit more honestly.
yeah, yeah. Let's get into a little bit more of the visual elements in the film. Film's in black and white, very specific choice, color palette wise. Was that to emphasize, the thoughts, the inner monologue, or just emphasize, whites versus shadows?
Yeah, absolutely. So at the beginning of the film, there's sort of a storytelling aspect to the film where
Yeah.
there's sort of this version of myself um, that sort of goes, okay, I'm going to tell my story, or like sort of
Mhm.
cues that idea. And as we move into the story, it moves into black and white. And a big part of that is because, and we see it with so many films, the language of film um, has used black and white to create this idea of memory or retelling. And I did like that idea, even though it is a popular choice. Um, because as you say, like the different shades that you get from black and white, I think are interesting in a film. Um, you can create something that's very soft, right? Like the sky's there and it's soft, and you're with the person that you're interested in romantically, and it's soft and it's beautiful, like the old movies like Casablanca or something like that, right?
Mhm.
And then you can also, in darker moments, use a darker palette on the to black spectrum that feels a little bit more intimidating, a little bit more film noir, a little bit more Citizen Kane in that way. And so I liked being able to use that language, and we were even able to do that, in the grading and post with, okay, well, in this moment as he's looking at her and he's interested in her, well, we'll sort of soften the features a little bit with that, and you have a lot of control that way. So that was kind of part of the choice.
Okay. Okay. There's a lot of things there that I need to unpack because I just had a bunch of thoughts. The first one, I never realized we don't dream in color. Does that make sense?
Interesting. Oh, yeah, right.
Do you remember colors in dreams? I don't think so. I just thought of that. I don't know. I think
That's
of
really interesting. I've never
people
thought of that.
people or
Yeah.
locations or objects, but I don't remember there being a color associated with them. So like the fact that
Hmm.
it's memories in black and white, that makes a lot of sense. That's just a thought. It just came to
That's
me.
cool. I've never thought of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And the
Interesting.
second thing
Yeah.
is the fact that it's in black and white. Um, I thought about the association with food and how you used represented food. Food is interesting when looked at visually because we think of nice presented, good-looking food or, a food that you would like to ingest, from like, consumerist perspective,
Mm.
product placement, right? So like, I feel like when you look at like a good-looking burger, you think of what like you would look,
Right. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
but it food is interesting because very easily it can go from beautifully looking to grotesque
Yeah.
very easily just by squishing it or presenting it differently. And the way you do that with using the black and white, using certain camera angles, very much so makes the food look disgusting.
Yeah, I'm glad you picked up on that. That's cool because that is definitely the intention. There's moments where it's like, you know, I don't want to give anything away, but like it's like you
Yeah.
look at a really good looking hamburger, but it's in a toilet. You know what I mean? Like or
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
so then it's like oh there's but it looks good, so it kind of confuses you. But then like there's a plate with food that should look good.
Should look good.
It should look good, but it doesn't look good. It looks like it's sort of messy and I
Yeah.
don't know if I'd really want to eat that. And yeah, exactly. Like the idea throughout as many choices as we could make in the film, the idea was to try to match the character's psychology. So that was definitely part of it. Yeah.
People watching this film who are battling certain things internally, one specifically being an eating disorders, or what kind of conversation do you hope it sparks?
Thank you for that question. Yeah, it's I think it's hard probably for people who are dealing with a similar sort of thing, like an eating disorder or an addiction, to watch a character go through this because it's really personal. But I hope that they can sort of get through the film to the end because the idea of it is that, there's this thing that has this, it feels like it has this power over you, that it has this control over you. And I think, from my own experience, I can only talk about that. As soon as you open up about it, and talk to someone else about it and have a connection with someone else about it, the power that it has over you, it starts to dissipate a little bit. I don't think it goes away. I think from my experience, you'll always probably have this sort of little bit of the shadow around it. But if you can talk about it and be open with it, and you are in a place that you feel safe and with someone that you love, and you can talk about it and you trust, then I think that shadow can go from being very big and looming to very small. And that's what I hope that those folks can take away from it is if they're not able to be open about it right now, is that hopefully they watch me be as open as I can kind of be about it and go, okay, if that goof can do it, then maybe I can too. Yeah.
Have you ever been to Slam Dance before?
No, this is brand new, so it's kind of exciting. Yeah. So my first feature, Bone Cage, came out in 2020, like height of the pandemic.
Hmm.
So we did get to go, like the film went to a lot of pretty cool festivals. That was exciting. But because of the pandemic, a lot of them were virtual, or if they were in person, it wasn't really safe to travel. So I did miss like almost all of
Majority
those
of them.
festivals, which is yeah, which is too bad because you're excited to meet other filmmakers and see their work in person. And one example is like we got into Beijing International Film Festival, and I was like, I'm going. Okay, I'm gonna figure it out. And then, 2 weeks before the festival started, there was a huge another wave of COVID, and it was like, oh, and I watched the award ceremony for the festival online, and it had like a small symphony and dancers, and I was like, oh my god, it'd be so cool to be there. But so I'm so glad to get to go to Slamdance because my first feature, I missed all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to talk about one particular track in the movie. You have Vivaldi, "Summer." Very interesting choice. Be- and I don't want to give away the scenes that it plays against, but um, what was the thought going through your mind, and how did you select certain tracks to play in the film?
So the Vivaldi piece, I also, as you said, like I love classical music. When I'm writing, I write to it. Usually I'll put headphones in and write to classical music because it kind of
Okay.
just loosens you up a little bit.
Yeah.
And that wasn't exactly the case with this, but I wanted something for that moment, those moments that you're talking about in the film, that felt larger than life, that felt operatic, that, Lars von Trier in the Antichrist movie, gosh, is that the name of it? I'm sort
Which
of
one? Sorry.
blanking. Lars von Trier's movie with, uh I think it is the Antichrist,
Okay.
there's this great operatic opening to the movie that's in slow mo, and it is in black and white too, and it's got this like big operatic piece as something very disturbing is happening, and it's full of life. And I wanted those moments in the film to feel operatic, larger than life, and to sort of match the visuals to that a little bit. The piece gives me anxiety when I listen to it a little bit,
It
kind of
does.
in a good way,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
And that's what
yeah.
I wanted, and that I wanted that piece to like help the audience feel that anxiety and feel that sort of pressure and that containment that the character's kind of feeling, and then that way we could sort of cut to the staccato of how it moves and flows. So that's why we chose that one, and then other pieces, all of the pieces of music that are like pure songs that are more modern. Those are all local artists from in and around Nova Scotia, PEI, and so thankfully I've sort of listened to these local artists before, and each piece we were just always after something that kind of felt like it matched the moment, and we wanted to give the Thin Taylor version, the sort of inner monologue version, these pieces that were kind of good and cool and interesting, early on. And then that way they could kind of evolve to more disturbing, or as you understand the manipulations of what that inner voice, that eating disorder is, then it sort of changes and distorts. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that makes total sense. Absolutely. Yeah, classical music, great classical music tracks have like this evolution in it where it brings you through like a whirlwind of emotions. And you know, some of the scenes where this song is playing, the character is going through those, same feelings. So I definitely love those moments where that track was playing because I felt it through the track. So
Oh, cool.
perfect. It's great. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's great to hear. The other thing that I was interested in with that track too is I was like, I think most people have heard this and it's
Yeah,
familiar.
for
And I
sure.
felt like, one of my concerns as we were starting the film was like, I feel like the story or the way that I want to tell it is a little unfamiliar in some ways. And so like hearing something that's familiar too is kind of like, okay, I can latch onto that. I know what that is early on.
Yeah. Before I let you go, I wanna discuss, I did not know you were directing, shorts for, This Hour Has 22 Minutes,
Yeah, yeah.
and one of my favorite recent, skits was the grocery skit.
Yes.
And
I'm
then I
so glad
saw
to hear that.
you posted it. So,
Yeah.
what a hilarious skit. It's so
Oh,
funny.
good.
What was that experience like? And what's the experience like working with This Hour Has 22 Minutes?
Honestly, it's awesome. I'm wearing the here, one second. I'm wearing I'm wearing the one of the
Oh,
shirts. I love it. It's a real blessing, like, being from the East Coast and, like, being here. I'm so lucky that this show shoots here because as a director, like, I definitely wanna work in TV. I'm interested in it from an acting background. I love collaboration, and that's kind of what TV does give you that. And so I was really like blessed and thankful that Mike Allison, the showrunner, like gave me a slot after I sort of poked him with a few comedic shorts I'd done, and but it's a blast. It's like a really fast paced show. Things come together quick. It's like you find out what you're shooting on Wednesday, you're shooting it the next day. Sort of thing. So it's really fun. And that sketch was the first sketch we shot of the week. So we
okay.
kind of like found out, like afternoon on Wednesday that we were shooting that. We were shooting it the next morning. And it's just such a well-oiled machine that they have there because they're doing this, for what, 22 to 24 episodes a year. And so the team's really well gelled. So when you come in and you're like, hey, would it be kind of cool if we did this? They can really achieve it quite quickly. So I love working there. Like I've gotten to do 2 seasons there now, only 4 episodes total, but some of the most fun I've ever had on set. That's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I hope everyone is as excited as I am to see Look at Me premiering at Slamdance this weekend. If you are again in the Utah area, go check out the festival, go support festivals, and go support Look at Me. Taylor, thank you so much for talking with me today. It's been a blast. Thank you.
No, thank you. Really fun. Thank you.